Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I'm Lennon. How you guys doing? And welcome to another video. This is going to be a little bit of a video in the mindset of what do I do. So one of the questions I get asked now and then is, how do you composite your armies? How do you make such effective armies as possible? And there is a little bit of a thought process behind this, but let's get into the game and show you my thought process of how I usually try to build up my armies. So here we are. For easy access, I took the custom battle screen and I set up a couple of armies from like different, you can say, cultures. So a Roman, you can say this would be barbarian, pike or spear focused factions, and Eastern factions. And for shits and giggles, I also brought up an Rome late game army. But if you take, for example, my recent campaign with the Iceni, what I usually try to do is I'm just gonna explain my thought process in this army, and then I'll show you guys the other armies and my reasoning behind that. And I know there's going to be a lot of comments saying this is wrong, this is the wrong way to go about it. And that's fine. Of course, there are like 100 different types of armies you can build. You could, for say, just doomstack Druid Nobles and see how far it can get you into a campaign. But this is more for the more early gamers starting out this adventure on Rome 2, or even either different Total War games. You can still keep this a little bit in mind. So with a faction as the Iceni, which is mostly sword based, I see we have a lot of melee infantry, and we don't really have that much missile or diversity in missile department or the cav department. So what I usually try to do as a general is to see, where am I going to fight? If I'm going to fight in a siege battle, I would rather have a infantry general than a cav general. If I'm fighting more on the field, I would probably rather have either a heroic rider or a chariot general. Although chariots can be really good, they are pretty easy to get killed. So for safe purposes, I'll go for the heroic riders. On the infantry department, we have a couple of different choices. Let's say we are into the mid to late game. If your economy can sustain it, I would go chosen swords. But for now, we could just go for a couple of chosen swords. So let's say 3 for a good front line, and then a couple of sword bands to either break the charge and then get these guys behind it, or the other way around. I would probably want to have some spears, like maybe 3 or 4 spears, so 2 on each flank, so they can support from the flank, wrap around if they need to, and otherwise they'll scare off the cav trying to get to your back lines. So in this case, I'm going spearband, but you could also go for the chosen spears, because they, of course, if and when available, always take the best unit in its category. For missile infantry, this is probably where I'm gonna get the most shit sprayed upon me. Is the biggest controversy, because like you have the skirmishers, which are low range but high damage, and probably a good decent amount of, where can I see that, armor piercing damage. And then you have the slingers, who are pretty far ranged but have a lot more ammunition, but are pretty poor missile fighters. Like you need to have some time to get these guys the kills they need, whereas javelins can probably do quite a bit of damage. In this sense, as you're playing most of the barbarian factions, like 3/4 of all your melee infantry and even sometimes the spear infantry have like 2 or 3 precursor javelins. So with that in mind, if I have a double line, my infantry can throw javelins. So in that case, I would rather go for like 3 to 4 Briton slingers, so we can take out their javelins, we can fire their general, and we have longer consistent firing over the duration of the entire battle, which most of the time means a penalty to their morale as well as they're being shot at. And then on the cav department, I don't think chariots, they're kind of niche. They can do what, it's not a safe option. Chariots need a lot of micro, so in that case I would go either like the best cav possible, get like 3 or 4 units of cav including your general, so then we have 1 slot left, get a Druid Noble in there, something like that, who either chant Encourage or Fear. Oh yeah, he encourages, so he encourages nearby troops, which is a pretty, and this is something like I would use in my standard campaigns. For the general, I always go towards the strategist line, basically because it's replenishment and second wind. But now let's see how I did with the, so this is a little bit on how my thought process is. Also, it depends a lot on who I'm fighting. So if I know I'm fighting, like, let's say Rome, with a lot of heavy armor, I might change these up to skirmishers, because I know skirmishers have more AP damage, and that's where we can do a lot more damage to like armored legionaries and that sort of shit. But fighting barbarians with low armor, slingers will do the job pretty good. As for the Averni, yeah, don't mind the cash cow over here. This is something I would go for probably late game-ish. So we have a basic line of 4 chosen swords. We have 2 naked warriors just to support that. We have either 2 or 4. I went for 4 this time, but you can do 2 as well. So 2 spearmen on each flank. And skirmishers, either the hunters or the slingers. I believe the hunters are a bit more late game. Slingers are more accessible early game. But in this case, again, since most of my units have precursor javelins, I would have gone for the long range missiles here. And then of course cav, I went for a quite large contingency of noble horse. Since we have, like, our front line will hold pretty decently with this, and then we have our noble horse to surround them and just do the hammer and anvil and just smash them into oblivion. So early game Rome is a little bit different because Rome doesn't have access to easy long range missiles. So in this case I would go either Hastadii or Principes, probably a large front line, couple of spears, and in this case I would go with the Velites or either the levies. Javelins or the Velites are a little bit better in what they do, but both will do the trick. And cav, over here you can always choose like the oh, that's the wrong one. I would like to have these. You can always have a mix of melee and shock cav in that department as well. And of course there are niche things where you can like expand with a little bit, like get rid of 2 Triarii for say like 2 ballistas to make it siege worthy. Get 1 ballistic gone, you can get an African elephant in there. So there's lots of way you can change up armies, change up for their specific use. So like if I know I'm fighting like a faction with a lot of horsemen, I probably skip the Hastadii and maybe get an extra 1 or 2 Triarii and an extra javelin to deal with horses. That's like the most of it is like you have to think on how do I fight, what type of army am I going to fight. And see, for the siege I maybe I don't need these, but I need extra manpower on the walls, which I would get some extra Principes for say, just to get more ladders and get more swords onto the walls quickly. So there's always this little dynamic thing that needs to go on in your head, like who am I fighting, what kind of terrain are we fighting, what kind of battles am I fighting. Now when you get to the Greek factions, Macedon, Sparta, Athens, and maybe even like something like Egypt or Bactria, which has access to pikes, it can get a little different. And usually my preference with these kind of armies is to pick defensive armies, because like pikemen are very annoying to attack with, but they are hella easy to defend with. So this would be one of my classic pike armies. So we have like 5 or 6 pikemen, just a steady front line, and then hoplites on the flanks to support that line. And still we could have a couple of 30 spears, which are light armor, very decent spears, who throw javelins, by the way. So that is a very good counter pick for like against skirmish cav, because like they throw javelins as well. And again, I went for the long range missiles, but that's my preference. There would be something to say, like if you're fighting Greek, if you're Greek and you're fighting either barbarian or against Roman factions, they have quite a decent array of missile infantry. So either peltists are really good, effective against like high armor units. They have a little bit of action in the mercenary department. Sorry, just itchy eye. But most of all, I do enjoy my long-range skirmish. So with the Eastern factions, it's a lot different again, because like you have access to horse archers. So there's a way you can take this army and look at it like, well, that's a very shit army. And it very well might be, but this is something I would probably use. Get a pretty much sturdy front line. Persian hoplites in this case, probably better than either the hillmen or swordsmen. Get a little bit of slinger fire or javelin fire again to support that front line, and then have a shit ton of horse archers. I put 2 camel archers in here as well. That's personal preference. They scare horses, so they might come in handy if your enemy has a big horse contingency as well. Use the Parthian horse archers to either fire on the flanks, distract other units, pick off enemy units wherever they can, maybe separate them and then just keep killing them. And then I have a couple of cataphracts what I would use to support your front line with. So the hammer and anvil again, have your front line be supported by either slingers or javelins, and then just make sure with the cataphracts that the enemy doesn't survive the first encounter. And a Roman late game just for shits and giggles. I know most of you probably won't get this far, because like then you probably conquered half of the world by the time you get this. But a late game army, I would probably go for Praetorian Cav, because they are absolute nightmare to deal with. For a melee Cav, they have really decent charge. They have a bonus versus large. They have a 42 charge bonus. Like, what more do you want? If you have ability to get auxiliaries, I'd probably go for the long-range missiles, because probably anything you're fighting will not have the armor capabilities to fight Balearic slingers or Syrian archers. And then again, armored legionaries or Praetorians, whatever you want to pick. Have precursor javelins. One thing, if you do have a tough fight ahead, get 1 or 2 eagle cohorts mixed in between your lines, because they have the encourage trait, I believe it's called. So it provides a morale bonus to nearby allies. So if you have like 2 legionary cohorts, an eagle cohort, 2 legionaries and an eagle and another, all of those units get a morale buff from those 2 eagle cohorts, which can come in really clutch if you're fighting like against 2 or 3 armies, having a big fight, that sort of stuff. So within your late game armies, make sure to have at least 1 or 2 eagle cohorts. I believe they are pretty expensive. Well, that's actually not that bad. Yeah, okay. Against like normal legionaries, they are pretty expensive. Even against veteran legionaries or avocatis. But like late game avocatis, legionaries are all like absolute top tier units. So there you have it. That is my guide on how to properly build up an army. And so, little recap, most of it comes down to what is available to you, who are you fighting against, and what terrain are you fighting on. So if you have those three things in mind, alongside your basic idea on how to set up an army, you'll probably be golden. And of course you'll get cut out sometimes, and sometimes it just doesn't work. Try again, refigure something out. Like this army doesn't work, well, get rid of 2 spears, get an extra cav in there, get an extra high tier unit in there, and try again. And you'll see that with a little bit of practice and experience, army building can become quite fun, like how to set up your shit. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed this little bit of tutorial information. Please don't roast me too hard in the comments. I am not the best at this, but I'm trying to help you guys figure out a better playstyle. So if you do enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like on it, leave a comment, a nice one preferably, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. So we are in 2024, we're trying to get to 1,000 subs this year, so let's get it. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.